So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a little earlier. As we all know, I am significantly technologically challenged. I stress about it, and the only way of dealing with that is to have everything set up. So let's just turn that media sound off, and then we'll be cooking on gas. So hello to whoever has joined me. I can see that there are a number of people coming in. If you can put a comment, then I'll be able to hopefully see what's going on. I know who's there. Good morning, Anthony. Hello Sylvia, thank you for watching. I've managed to go live today. I haven't got a phone that can overheat. The conservatory's not too hot. I know I'm a little bit early. That was my paranoia in case I needed to message you, Anthony, to get me sorted out from a tech point of view. We will just wait a few minutes for people to arrive, and then I will be able to start the demonstration for you. Sarah Lou, I've got a message on my phone that says you're watching and to wave at you, but my technology skills don't let me know how to do that. Thank you for letting me know that you're here, and good morning to everyone. I'm sure someone ultimately will be able to tell me how to do a wave in Facebook at some point, but definitely not time to practice that now. I think we've got a few. It's still a little bit before 11 o'clock according to my watch. Yeah, I did manage it all myself this morning, Anthony. Relatively simply, I have to say. I even remembered to make sure that I told StreamYard to post to the correct page. That's always a good thing. Would you mind, Anthony, sharing it to my page for me? Because that's the one thing Mumpty forgot to do, and also to the Crafty Surgeon, if that wouldn't be too much trouble for you. And then I'll know where to pick it up later on. So that would be great. So I have, Charmaine asked me if I would do the lives a while ago, and because of all the tech troubles I've had, I've been very reluctant to do so, but with a lot of help, a lot of support from crafty friends, I think I might have got there, which is always a positive thing to do. I'm doing this ahead of a show on Create and Craft on Tuesday, when I've got Pentart products. You can't see it, but I do have a Pentart pinny on, because I'm on their design team, and I'm very privileged to be asked to demonstrate for them on Selly Telly. So we've got a whole mixture of different products on the show. 2 different forms of crackle. It's very difficult for me to know which one I like the best. So we have on the show this one, which is a fineline crackle that will give a faux porcelain effect, and there are definitely tricks and things that you need to know to get this to work as effectively as possible. Hello Stuart, good morning Sue, thank you for joining us. And then we've got Sheila joining us as well. So Sarah Lou, the conservatory isn't too bad today, so hopefully I won't need it, because no, I haven't got my fan yet, but I am not using my mobile phone to stream. I might lose my comments because they're coming up on my mobile phone, but I'm not streaming from that, so hopefully the stream will carry on without the debacle from the other day, which was an interesting exercise in frustration. So we are just about at 11 o'clock. So I've got a couple of different things to show, but I'm going to concentrate the demo later on this one, the fineline crackle from Pentart. As I say, there are definitely tricks to getting this to work effectively, but it's a fabulous product for adding to your canvases, to home decor pieces, and for upcycling cheap glass, pots and things that you might have lying around. So it's worth mastering, and once you've mastered it, it's just a question of lots of layers, so it's not difficult, but as I say, there are definitely some tricks along the way. So this is this one, and if you don't like recycling, then you can use it. This is the same products used on a tray to make a home decor piece. So here we are. So you can use it in lots of different ways from there. And good morning, Sam, thank you for joining me. Good morning, Angela, thank you. The second product I have on the show is the one component crackle, the classic crackle that I always use with a top coat that I dab on with a brush, and this is this one, and this is part of again the moulds are on the show, the crackles on the show, and the beautiful rice papers are also on the show. So it's up to you obviously where you get them. They are available in lots of places in the UK. So that's that. There are also lots of different colours of matte acrylic paints, and the Pentart acrylics are matte, and there are some of this beautiful trim which is elastic wood that hasn't been on air for ages, and I've antiqued that one, and that's the oranges and yellows that are on the show. Good morning, Louisa. And this one is with some of the purple and pinks that are on the flow, with some of the elastic wood trim. So lots of gorgeous, lovely, yummy products, which I'm just going to tuck out of harm's way onto the floor to enjoy. So what am I going to use today? I have done quite a lot of prep for a couple of reasons. The first one is to say that whilst you can heat dry all of these products, my personal preference, and the one that I think gives the best results, is actually to let things naturally dry. Now, my starting point for working with non-porous surfaces is this product, which is the bonding primer from Pentart, and there isn't anything that I've found that's quite like it. Let me find the pot. I've got a pot somewhere. Aha! So when you're sloppy with it, as I have a tendency to be, and you can pop it inside. So the white is the bonding primer, and you cannot rub it off with your fingernail. So that's just straight onto clean glass. And actually, if you can, I've got a point of a blade here, and I can scratch it off. So if you get it in the wrong place, you can. But with ordinary wear and tear, it's not going to shift. So it really does stick things to non-porous surfaces. My preference is to make sure I've got a big pot of water to dump brushes in, and use a separate brush for each product so you don't contaminate everything. And before I start out with any glass project, I use rubbing alcohol. Now obviously there's lots on the market, just to give everything a quick squirt and to make sure that I don't have any sticky residue or grease on my fingers. That marks inside. Now if anyone wants to know where these my assorted glass jars have come, because the eagle eye will notice that I over time that I do have a lot of them. They come from a well-known cheap supermarket, and it's one of the two that begins with an A, and I'm not going to say any more. but they come with little plastic tops so that you can re-see them, and I like these because they don't have a screw top, so I think they look more elegant recycled than ordinary jam jars. I will say that in terms of buying the yoghurt per 100 grams of yoghurt, they're an expensive way of buying yoghurt, but if you want a lot that look the same, it's not bad. And as you can see, I've just dunked my sponge brush into my bonding primer, and I'm just going to rescue my fingers and give this a little bit of a dab. So that's all you need to do with these, is just dab on. You want a fine coat. Definitely it's worth, it doesn't have to be particularly even, but you definitely need a fine coat, and the second layer is definitely better off tapped on rather than swiped on, but because it tends to lift it unless you've let it dry for a long time. So you see, there we are, it's upside down, back to front, contorted hands, but that's life. So we'll pop that one down there. Now my advice is to just set that one aside and to let it dry completely. Okay. Get in line. These are good products. Pentart has been around for a long time. They are a company based with chemists, so they understand how materials work together. They've been going a long time, and they do products that are suitable for home decor use, not just for crafting. So they really are good quality products. So it goes on shiny, and it's matte, completely matte when it's dry. This is to prove that it was the same sort of glass jar. And I would say let one coat dry and then add another coat, but definitely dab that. And once you've done that, then move over to an acrylic paint. Any acrylic paint will work, but I quite like the Pentart ones purely because they are completely matte. A lot of acrylics are sort of semi-matte rather than truly matte, and at this point I will always just tap my acrylic paint on. And this is about layering. You don't need a big thick lump of anything. The more lumpy it is, the more likely you are to lift layers up. So literally just pounce your acrylic paint on to your product, to your surface. Can be any surface you want. You could, as I say, you can do this onto canvases, on top of rice papers. You make your choice. I just thought that the faux porcelain technique is something I've used for previous television samples, and it got a lot of comments with a lot of people asking me how to create this effect. And so that's why I thought that this would be a good live to do for everyone. So again, to dab it all over, it's the usual issue, isn't it? Got an odd shaped sample, don't worry about it, pop it to the side, let it dry completely. You can heat gun this step. When it's completely dry, then add a second layer so that you have you've got a solid coat. Now pick whichever colour you want that will work with your project. There isn't a set of rules. I tend to pick something that will work in with the background, and if the background of my rice paper is reasonably neutral, but if you've got a really dark coloured background, then you either have to cut very close to your image, or you have to get used to colour blending your colours to make life easy. And then all I'm going to do is add some water around the edge of my rice paper. You can just tear it out. It's entirely up to you how you go about this for these. And I always protect the piece that I want, which is this piece, and pull away from it. That way we don't have an unhappy oops and you pull the wrong piece and you tear into your image. It just means that you're stabilizing your piece as you go. Now, if you are going to be decoupaging straight onto glass or ceramic, then you really need to get the textile decoupage varnish and glue. But if you're decoupaging onto a couple of layers of paint, then actually the ordinary decoupage varnish will work. And I've got Silky Shine here. They do a matte. It depends on what you go for. This project actually it doesn't really matter because we're going to add a varnish at the end of it, but choose the finish that you like for your project. Good morning Agnieszka, good morning Sharon, good morning Judith. I hope everyone is well, and I'm going to use my decoupage glue as both a glue and a varnish to seal my project. So all I'm going to do is add that on top of my glass jar, which makes life easy. I've got a small image here, so I'm not going to need to do very much with it to get it to fit in place. But if I was really struggling and I'd got a bigger image, then all I would do is literally tear into it, so that gives it some flexibility for going onto my project. So let me just turn that round so that can go onto there. There we are. So what you're aiming for is to have a finish that is reasonably flat at this stage. The more bubbly it is and the more layered it is, then ultimately the more finishing and more layers of varnish, if you want a professional look at the end, that you'll need to add, because you'll need to add lots of layers and sand back to get rid of all of the until you have a completely smooth surface. I'm not worried about that. I don't sell my stuff commercially, and I actually quite like a reasonably textured look. And I am going to, partly out of habit, because the paint should have sealed itself, but I am going to just give myself a coat of my decoupage glue stroke varnish all the way round my piece, because that makes it easier from my point of view to do that. You don't want a thick layer, but having everything completely sealed makes sense. And again, don't leave yourself with great big lumps, because as I say, you will be adding varnish and sanding back for a long time the more lumpy your piece is, and that can then go over there. Now at this stage you need to walk away from it and let it dry. The fineline crackle does not like water to go anywhere near it, and that's one of the biggest things. You can't afford to take a brush out of a water pot where you've been you've dunked it to clean it, get the paints around the right way, and then expect it to the crackle to work, because it won't. You need to start out with a completely dry brush, otherwise you will absolutely regret it. Thank you, Sharon. Yes, the images are beautiful. There's a couple of really nice papers in the Garden of Promises collection from Stamperia that just have lots of small images on them. So they have bigger images and small images, and if you watch my Facebook page and my Instagram page, then you'll see lots of different samples that I've done using them over the next few days. So I now have a pot that has got, as you say, a bigger image on it, but it's completely dry. And I don't mean just dry to touch on the surface, I mean dry all the way through from there. And I've got new brushes. Now on the show we have 100ml pots. I've got some much bigger pots here that I'm using, and my advice is that unless you're going to do this technique time and time again, then you really need to just get the 100ml pots, because most mediums thicken up once they're opened over time, so I think you're just better off doing that. And the one step crackle, the step one crackle of mine has thickened up quite a lot just because I've had it open. So yes, you can go online and you can find, you know, 230 ml pots like mine that per mil will work out cheaper than the 100 ml pots. As I say, unless you're going to be doing this commercially, or you're making dozens and dozens and dozens of pieces for you know, for selling, then I would really suggest that you don't get the 200 ml pots, because things will thicken up, and then you'll have a big pot of stuff that is set and gloopy and a bit like thick jelly over time. So you're better off, my personal opinion, I mean, I have to say, you do what you want, but you're having the smaller ones. Okay, so there we are. So that is that one. So that is the step one crackle, and it goes on white, which is going to be really difficult to see on here. And again, it needs to be sat on its side and left to dry. Once it's completely dry, you can heat set that one if you want to. Once it's completely dry, then you add the step 2 crackle, which is a yellow liquid, and it's quite thin, and that is literally just the case of painting it on. So every step of the way, paint dry, which is why I sometimes will have things lined up in a row just ready to go. So paint that on. I'm not going to do that because I haven't got one I've already put glue on the step 1 onto. And when it's dried, it looks like this, and it'll have gone shiny. You can see here compared to this one, which, let me get one that's matte. Yeah, a jar that is matte. So the surface before will be matte, and once you've got the 2 steps of crackle on, crackle glaze on, then it becomes shiny. So you can see the light glistening off that. Okay. So from there, and then you'll look at it, and I can see that there are cracks on here, but you'll look at it the first few times you do it and you think, has it or hasn't it cracked? And you can just take a heat gun if you're not sure, and that will speed it up. But this one I know has cracked. Now on the show are these little beauties of paint, and they are not to be confused with ordinary waxes. Okay, they look like a wax, they don't quite smell like a wax. The Umbra certainly doesn't. They are antique pastes, and they function in a different way to a wax, so don't be confused. If you put a wax onto these pots, all that's going to happen is it will cover the surface, and actually what you want is the colour to go into the back, into the cracks, and for you to be able to lift it off, and you definitely won't be able to do that if you use a wax. So these are the antique pastes rather than the waxes. Okay, and if you pop them on, you can use a brush. So you can see here my pot that didn't look like it had crackled there, when I put the paste on, absolutely has crackled. And I'm just going to rub this in all over. She says getting her fingers stuck in the pot to bring out all of the cracks. Just work it in. If you haven't got it sealed properly, you will know about it because you won't be able to lift the paste off with your finger, with a cloth. So you know, it is worth making sure that you have sealed everything properly before you do that. So you could use say 2 steps at every single stage up to the point where you're putting your crackle on. So now that looks like a hot mess, really. It does give a beautiful effect, that is for sure, And at this stage, please do not get a wet wipe out. If you do, you will lift off all of your hard work. All you need is a clean dry cloth, and it will take off everything that's not sat in the cracks. So your very aged pot can be taken back, so that you just leave your antique paste in the cracks. I definitely agree with you, Agnieszka. For this type of effect, it is totally the best thing. Now, because I haven't got an even layer around the top of it, I'm just going to add a little bit more around here, from here. So, as I say, please don't put any water anywhere near it at this stage. Do try it, Caroline. It's not difficult. It is about respecting the product and knowing what layers on what works. You can see just how crackled and how fine those crackles are here. And at this point, you need to have a brush that you really don't mind writing off, because we need to use a solvent based varnish. Remember, I said don't put a baby wipe near this as you'll wipe off the top. The same applies if you try a water based varnish. So you want a glossy based varnish for this step, and multiple thin layers and drying properly in between is definitely the key. And again, a fresh, completely dry brush. Judith, the antiquing paste are absolutely fab. I've got copper, white, silver, gold and umbre, and they just give a very different effect. So I've used the umbre on here because it's a darker one. On my first project that I showed at the beginning, this one is the gold coloured one, so it's worth it. It really is worth it. And then all you're going to do is take your varnish and seal your pot. And I, again, like everything I've said all the way through, layer, layer and layer, and dry in between your layers. It's so worth it. Now, Agnieszka is the queen of decoupage, it has to be said, and she would probably, and I'm too lazy, so it's entirely up to you, but I would say that you basically put a layer of varnish on, let it dry completely, set them up production line style, walk away. When it's completely dry, you add another layer of varnish, let it dry, add another layer of varnish, and then sand it back, because that will help take off with some wet. At this point you can use wet and dry sandpaper, because you've sealed the crackle with 3 layers of your varnish. Now this brush is actually going into some terps rather than into water, so that I can hopefully reuse it, because it's actually a decent brush. And then once you've sanded it back, if it doesn't feel completely smooth, then add another couple of layers and wipe back. Some of the mica is absolutely fine, but when you add the glossy varnish over the top of it, I think you might move some of it if you're not very careful, but it totally is fine to use. What you don't want is any water. Now, the joy of my expensive per gram yoghurt is it comes with these little plastic tops. So I have so I've done a series of tops, and I've got one to decorate for you. So remember, at the beginning I said that the bonding fluid will stick to anything. This is the plastic top, deliberately not coloured inside, so we can confirm that it is the plastic top. And I've added 2 layers of the bonding primer and this little piece, which is an elastic wood fitting, because we've got some of these on the show. We've also got some mould, so this one is a rose mould, and here I've actually used the antique paste as I would a wax, and this is just some gold flakes. We've got a mould with some little hearts in it that I've just added to the top of this lid to make it different, and then added a little cabochon so that I've now got a decorative top. The show has this cameo mould in 2 parts, and this again has been painted with the ivory paint, had these attached with some gel medium, and then Umbra added onto the top of it. Yes, Agnieszka, I can go and you'll have to bear with me while I go and get them though, but just bear with and I shall go and grab them. I know exactly where they are. So on the show is this mould, which is beautiful. We've got this one with the roses on it. We've got the 2-part frame and cabochon, so you can use those separately. We've got the rose. We've got the hearts. So there's 4 different variations of that. Any cameo would work in any mould will work for you. It's just a question of what you want. I've used the products that were on the show, and then we've got this set of locks as well to use. Now most of these work nicely with air dry clay. I have to say that this one and this one are definitely better with resin, but the others work absolutely fine. So I've got these are prepared for the show. So this is the rose. You can see how detailed it is. This is the accent, cartouche maybe. So these are 2 of the locks from paper clay, and then we have, as I say, we had and these are 2 of the different mould shapes. So really you choose whichever, but this is a bundle on the show, and heads up, I think Pentart are clearing them, so I don't know what the price is going to be, but I suspect that it's going to be pretty competitive because of that. And as I said earlier, there's the elastic woods on the show. So, and the joy of the elastic woods, if people haven't seen them before, I've got a piece, I'll show you how they work. So in a minute. So I've used a mixture. So sometimes I will use air dry clay. Quite often I will use air dry clay in my moulds, and my preference is to use Hearty Soft, or preferably Artista. If you go onto the Artista website, it's usually cheaper there than anywhere else, so that's a good tip to go for. So whilst that top is drying, so I can show that, let me move that out of the way so my heat gun will move. This is a piece of elastic wood. It's made from the same material as that. So if I just pop my heat gun on and pop this here, don't try unwrapping this, you'll break it. But if you just watch carefully, as it will, bit by bit, patience not being my greatest forte, gradually. So it started closed, soften up. It's quite difficult to show this at this angle without burning my fingers, but you can, it will, as you see, gradually become soft and unwind on for you. So that means that you can use that as a trim for awkward surfaces, such as round boxes. This is a plain cardboard box, but because of the addition of the trim, I don't think anyone would realise that it's a cheap and cheerful cardboard box, because it looks quite luxurious to my mind. Yeah, so the elastic wood is brilliant, and there's a bundle of elastic wood with some beautiful corners and some strips. Both I've made 2 boxes, and the one with the Greek key design, essentially that is 1 strip of the elastic wood, so it goes a long way. So that one is dry. I might have been better putting some gesso on that first, but hey ho, we live, you know, we don't always have time to do everything properly, but it will need another coat of the acrylic paint because I can still see the brown through it. So this is about adding, just it means that you can take your simple plastic pots and really upscale, you know, make a difference and make them look not like plastic wood pots, but it's basically, and just by altering what you do. So yeah, we've got several different versions there. We've got a decoupaged and crackled one, we've got a gold flaked one, we've got simple moulds with antiquing. Sheila, there are 2 brands, I think, essentially, of elastic wood. There's one from a company called Art, and I think these are actually Art, and then there is Wood You Bend as well, and they're fabulous. If you look on Wood You Bend website, they're based in Leeds, and then go to their suppliers, then and their retailers, because they don't sell direct, you'll find that the products are quite expensive. So I think you might find that you're better off buying them in the quantities from via Create and Craft. But otherwise, yes, you can go directly to them. Currently, Art do not have a supplier in the UK. Dally Art Market has a few pieces, though having looked at her website recently, she's taken off an awful lot of stuff, so you might find that it's not there. Now clearly a plastic lid and heat gun's not the smartest move in the world, so you know, again, I would have leave those to dry naturally if I was doing it for myself, but hey ho. Yeah, there we are. I'll pop that over there whilst that cools down, because it needs to cool down, otherwise when I try the next layer it's all going to melt in and stick when I don't want it to do so. Blame Jill for using beautiful products. I'm really sorry, Sarah Lou, but yeah, I am very lucky, lady. I've been crafting for many years. I have had the chance to experiment with lots of different products, and I certainly know which ones I like and which ones I don't like. And you're not the first person, Samantha, to suggest that I'm a good craft. I've got another friend who describes me as the best enabler she knows. So this really does need to cool down before I want to put any antique wax on it, because antique paste on it, because it will I want it to sit in the crevices and not melt in and attach itself. So just bear with whilst we let that dry. I'm glad no apologies are needed. You know, I think it's just a pity that, you know, in the UK we struggle to find so many of the European brands. Because they're just not imported by very many companies, which is very sad as far as I'm concerned. But hey ho, right, this might still be too warm, but we will find out. So there we are. So I've got my, still too hot, patience is so I would always, Caroline, I would always use bonding primer on glass rather than gesso, because I think it adheres better, and it's absolutely the intended product for using on non-porous surfaces. If you use gesso, it's a chalky base and it will stick, but it doesn't bond as well. and it's really easy to lift your gesso layers off the top. So I would say that you're always better, if you can afford it, and obviously everyone's budgets are different, to go for the product that is designed for what you want it to do. So if you want it to stick on glass or acrylic, bonding primer in my mind is the better one. But obviously, now, so here I've just popped, I've used my wet paste on top as a wax. But if I take a cloth or a baby wipe at this stage, and this is the only time I will let you take a baby wipe out with these, I can lift quite a lot of that off. Yeah, so you can use it as a wax, but it's not particularly stable, so you would need to prime it. Yes, bonding primer does come in a bigger pot, and if you upcycle lots of pieces of glassware or acrylic, or you're making acrylic baubles at Christmas maybe, then actually I would go with the bigger pot. It does again thicken up with time, so if you're not going to use it lots and lots and lots, then I would again have the same situation as I said with the with the crackle mediums. Buy the size of the pot that you're likely to use in a reasonable period of time. There we are. So I've just taken a natural bristle brush because it's stiff rather than a soft brush, and I can use that to push the wax into all of the nooks and the crannies, and then I can lift off what I don't want. So here, I don't know if you saw how the difference between that. So I've lifted off quite a lot of that, leaving my colour in the crevices, and you can't do that with ordinary wax. It doesn't work. Yeah, so that's the difference between antique paste and ordinary waxes. So there we are. So we have a little quick tutorial on how to make faux porcelain effect using cheap as chips glass jars that we're going to we're recycling. So, and with a number of different tops. You see, I've got lots of bits to do. There we are. There we are. So, beautiful rice paper, different tops. Choose whichever you want to do. Have fun. So as a little recap, because we've got time, acrylics, if you've got glass or an acrylic surface, 2 coats of bonding primer, thin layers, let it dry, add another layer. Okay, and I can't stress the drying enough. It's really important. When your bonding primer is dry, add a coat of paint. I quite often use the Pentart Decor Soft range, but the acrylic paint mats will work brilliantly as well, and that's what I've used for these. Comes in I don't know how many shades. There are about 25 shades on the show, but in smaller pots, so lots to choose from. Choose your colour that will work with your rice paper. That's why this one is there. 2 coats, dry thoroughly in between. Let it, once it's dry, a layer of your fineline crackle varnish. Let it dry. Can heat set it. Be careful, it will bubble if you get too near it with a heat gun. Dry brush. Fineline crackle, thin layer. You can massage it in with your fingers. That's absolutely fine. I prefer to let it dry overnight. Don't put a heat gun directly to it, but if you've got a pot, you can hang your which one is it? Your heat gun in like this, and you'll get transferred heat. That will help to dry it for you. Okay. quite happily. Once it's dry, don't go near it with water at this stage. Okay. Thank you, Agnieszka. Yes, a hairdryer is safer because it's more blowy and not as hot. You then use your antique paste, rub it into all of the cracks, and take a paper towel or a soft cloth and rub off the stuff on the top. Do not go near it with anything wet. Does that sound like the voice of experience? Oh, absolutely it is. Okay, and then varnish it with a solvent-based varnish, and add as many layers as you need, rubbing back until you've got the surface finish that you want to do. So it's a great medium. I think it's not difficult. It is about being patient. Set it up and run along with it, and over time you'll get, you'll master it without any real problems. There isn't, apart from keeping everything completely dry in between, not going near it with a damp brush in any way, shape or form. That's the biggest tip I can give you. And then have fun embellishing with what you've got. You could take some of your elastic wood, forget about the top, just cut a piece of this to put around, and that will work absolutely fine. So Agnieszka, if you bear with me, hang on a minute, because I didn't think that one through. So also in the kit is a black acrylic paint. Let me get that on a bottle, and this has got gold actually pushed into the cracks, and a resin mould with the chrome powders on the top of it. So yeah, it does work really well. And of course you can reverse decoupage, so you can actually take a glass plate, clean it, add your step 1 crackle of your fine line crackle, let it dry, add your step 2, let it dry, add your paste, rub it back, glaze it, and then add, once it's been fixed with the varnish, you can then carry on and add a rice paper and covering. So if you bear with, there we are. So this one is a glass plate, and I've used some Crafty Clock rice paper, the copper crackle, and sealed it with acrylic paint and a silky touch, soft touch varnish. This is just a longer glass plate, and I think it might be quite difficult because it's really difficult to photograph, but I can see here the silver on here, and if I'd chosen a background, I think you'd have see it better, but I wanted that sort of soft icy look for this one. So back to black, so that's the gold and the copper. It's really quite, there we are, on the shiny surfaces on the glass plate, and this is the silver and the white reversed onto the back of glass plate. So they are hugely, if you're working on the back of glass, a glass plate, so you're reversing things, you put your crackle on first, have that set and sealed, and then add your rice paper and then seal that with whatever colour paint you want, or add gilding flakes to the back of it. It's up to you. But if you're working onto the back of the glass, then yes, use your crackle medium onto your glass directly and let it settle, and then let that cure, and then add your rice paper. So the sky is really, there are no limits to what you can do, to what you can manage to upcycle, how you manage to create things. It's really entirely up to you as to what you want. So Sharon, what do you mean by when will I be back? I'm on Create and Craft on Tuesday morning at 9 AM. So that will be fun, and I will be showing this technique and also the universal the one component crackle for that one. If you weren't here at the beginning, this is the one component crackle in the back of it, and you can see the moulds that I've got coloured with paints and a different rice paper just on a wooden board. Yeah, and if you mean on here, I have arranged with Charmaine to do a live. I think it might be possibly the 15th of June, and then around about the 23rd of July, so that so the plan, hopefully, Sharon, is that I will do a live in this group most months. I'm not going to say exactly when, and it will almost certainly feature Pentart products. If people want me to show other things, then please drop me a personal message. Be polite, obviously, because there's no excuse for rudeness in this world, and upsetting people is never a good move. But I'm more than happy, if there are Pentart products that products from Stamperia that people aren't used to using, or want some tips, hints and tips to do with what's going on to make using those products. I go live, I'd like to say, if I'm honest, every Friday morning on my own page, but that's pushing my luck because life gets in the way. So I try and do a live on a Friday morning at 10 o'clock because it's a time of the day when I don't think many people do go live, so it seems to work. But I will always announce that in my own place. I need to ban you from this group, do I, Anthony? The products work really well. They're great makes to use, and I absolutely love them. So if thank you, Sarah Lou. Yes, my page is literally Jill Humphrey for anyone who wants to know what it is. Just to confuse things, on Instagram I'm Jill Not the Crafty Surgeon, or I've got a page which is called a group which is called the Crafty Surgeon. So you can find me about social media. I post something most days with something. So if there's a technique or something that you see that I've done that you like the look of, don't know how it's done, then message me and then we'll do something else with it. Yeah, Carol, I agree. It's the whole group that will bankrupt everyone, isn't it? There are so many options, so many choices, from for everything that we do. Okay, so I hope that is, everyone likes that as a demo. Let me put those out of the way. Floors are a really useful part of the craft room surfaces, and I'm going to stop at the stream now. I will check back with the comments and make sure I've answered everything. Now then, I have some hotkeys, so maybe hopefully these will work and it will stop quickly enough for me. So